Some monsters are not make-believe. They don't just live in stories told around a campfire or on the silver screen. They live down the road. They are quiet. They keep to themselves. Ed Gein was one of those monsters. Welcome to Creep Codex. Let's pull apart fact and fiction. Viewer discretion advised. This video contains disturbing themes, including violence, death, and human remains. Edward Theodore Gein was born into isolation. He grew up on a secluded farm just outside the small, sleepy town of Plainfield, Wisconsin. His world was small, dominated by two powerful figures, a timid, alcoholic father who he largely ignored, and a mother, Augusta, who was a force of nature. She was a deeply religious zealot, a woman who saw sin lurking around every corner. She preached to her two sons, Henry and Ed, about the evils of the world, especially the inherent wickedness of women. She was their teacher, their preacher, their jailer, creating a prison of piety and fear on their remote 160-acre farm. Ed was a shy, awkward boy with a strange laugh that made him a target for bullies. He had few friends and lived in his mother's shadow. Augusta fostered this dependence. When his father died in 1940, followed by his brother Henry under mysterious circumstances during a brush fire in 1944, Ed was left completely alone with the one person who defined his existence. For the next year, it was just Ed and Augusta, a toxic, suffocating relationship that would become the cornerstone of the horrors to come. After Augusta's death from a stroke in 1945, something inside Ed Gein irrevocably broke. The center of his universe was gone, and he was left utterly alone in the decaying farmhouse. The house became a shrine, her bedroom, the living room, the downstairs parlor, sealed, collecting dust like forgotten memories. Ed was left to rattle around in the remaining rooms, a ghost in his own home. This profound loneliness, fused with his mother's twisted teachings, festered into a gruesome obsession. To the town, he was an odd but harmless handyman and babysitter. No one imagined he was spending his nights in local cemeteries. He began exhuming the graves of recently buried middle-aged women, those who resembled his mother. He wasn't just digging them up, he was taking them home. Piece by piece, he began building a new world for himself, a world crafted from the dead, inside the silent walls of his mother's house. Today, we look back through the lens of streaming television. Shows like Netflix's Monster, The Ed Gein Story promise an unvarnished look at the man behind the myth. But how much is real? And how much is crafted drama designed to keep us glued to our screens? When we watch a series like Monster, The Ed Gein Story, we want a window into the truth, and in many ways, the show delivers. The creators capture the suffocating atmosphere of Gein's isolation after his mother's death. A house that became both a tomb and a shrine, fixing things for neighbors by day and descending into his macabre hobby by night. The horror began with solitude. The show confronts Gein's obsession with his mother, Augusta, the psychological core. It nails the pathology. Augusta, as a domineering, puritanical force, warping his reality, his sexuality, and women. After she died, grief curdled into a grotesque desire to become his mother, to literally crawl into her skin. He began grave robbing to resurrect Augusta through other women. In November 1957, police uncovered a true house of horrors. Bowls made from human skulls, chairs upholstered with human skin, leggings crafted from women's legs, a corset made from a female torso. These were not Hollywood inventions. One persistent myth: Ed Gein was a cannibal. That image fed into Leatherface. But Gein denied eating flesh during interrogation. He was a craftsman of the macabre, not a gourmand. Another exaggeration: Gein as a prolific serial killer. He was definitively linked to two murders. Mary Hogan, tavern owner, 1954. Bernice Worden, hardware store owner, 1957. The rest of his collection came from graves. He was a grave robber first, a murderer second. Films blur this into a killing spree. The reality was infrequent, targeted violence. Mythology also spawned bizarre rumors. Claims of Nazi ties or obsession with camp experiments are unsupported. Wartime fear mixed with gruesome crimes. There is absolutely no evidence Gein cared about that. His motives were personal and psychological, not political ideology. His horror was homegrown, iconic myth, the psycho shower scene. Hitchcock's film came from Robert Bloch's novel, inspired by Gein. Norman Bates echoes Gein's mother fixation and fractured identity. But the shower murder is cinematic invention. Gein shot his victims. That scene belongs to Norman Bates, not Plainfield's Ed Gein. Think Ed Gein's horrors were twisted. Darker trails lie ahead. Next on Creep Codex, America's first serial killers, the Harp Brothers. Frontier Nights, Fear in the Trees. Subscribe for the full descent. Viewer discretion advised. So why, after all these years, does the ghost of Ed Gein continue to haunt our collective imagination? Long after the real man died in a mental institution in 1984, his story lives on, fueling our nightmares and our box office hits. The answer lies in his relatability, not in his actions but in his origins. He wasn't a phantom. He was a man, a product of his environment. A lonely soul twisted by abuse and isolation. His story serves as a terrifying mirror. It reminds us that monsters are not born, they are made. Our fascination forces hard questions about our consumption of true crime. A little more drama here, a more cinematic murder there. It makes for better television, but risks turning human tragedy into simple entertainment. Did Netflix go too far, or get it right? Comment below, subscribe to Creep Codex, and tell us the creepiest detail you noticed. What did you think of Monster?